Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Real quick, me and Steve Stewart are going to cover a bunch of topics for this blunt pep talk episode. And by the way, a lot of what we're going to cover has nothing to do with podcast production. It has to do with strengthening you as a person, which will then, of course, help in every area of your life. And the other thing is Steve is going to have a special announcement. This is an exclusive announcement here. This is the first time you're ever going to hear this anywhere. That's at the end of this episode, so stick around to check that out. All right, well, welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran. I produce podcasts, and I run Podcast Engineering School, teaching people how to produce podcasts at the highest professional level. And today with me is Steve Stewart for this really short, really special, blunt pep talk episode. Steve Stewart, how are you, brother?
Oh, thank you for having me. I am fantastic.
Steve Stewart of the fame or I should say the Podcast Editors Club fame on Facebook. If you're not a member of that Facebook group, Podcast Editors Club, definitely need to be in there. And Steve also runs Podcast Editors Academy with the exalted Mark Deal, of course. And so the Podcast Editor Academy is an awesome little community that you've been running for. How long have you had the Academy now?
The Academy was launched in June of 2020, I believe.
Oh, yeah. So 6 months in, it's going very well, I know. So that's great. So everyone, check out the link in the description for the Podcast Editor Academy. You got some new stuff coming up in January or soon that you're going to mention. But first, let's get into the blunt pep talk. Steve Stewart, you produce a lot of podcast audio for financial podcasts, right? Like investing and finances, right?
Yeah, personal finances. That's my jam.
Yeah. So that's part of this blunt pep talk. So this pep talk is for 2021. Like, here's the thing. 2020 has been a crazy year. Okay, fine. But let's move on. Let's each of us focus on the things in our lives that can make the most difference and create the most success. Right, Steve? There's things that we can focus on rather than, just wasting time reading through a Twitter feed. You can focus on other things. We're going to talk about 5 areas. And these are really important areas, right, Steve?
Yeah. What I've seen a lot of people do, and I try to fight myself, is spending all this time just scrolling through and switching channels. There's just too much consumption, and we need to be doing more moving. Moving, creation, improving, focusing on the things that'll move us forward, make us better.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've written a self-help book 11 years ago, actually. It's called Leap Beyond Your Limits, and I'm all into self-help. I'm all into empowering yourself, building yourself up, strengthening your core faculties, and really becoming strong, right? And so when you're strong and you go out into the world and do stuff, if you're stronger than most of the other people, you're going to succeed. That's how success happens, right?
Yeah. And it's
Totally.
not to try and push people down. You're going to try and bring people up with you. And the more that you bring people along with you, the better you all are. The better your community, the better your mental health. We're going to get on all that stuff in a little bit.
All right, let's do it. So the first one on the list, and by the way, why don't you read the list of 5, Steve?
Yeah. The first one is finances. The second, skills, career. Third one is family and relationships. Fourth one is health, all kinds of areas of health. And the fifth one, well, we'll leave the fifth one to reveal at the end.
Oh, boy. And I also would like to underscore that, okay, everybody has covered all these topics a bazillion times, but this episode is a very short episode. It's just a little reminder, bringing us back to what we need to focus on. So the first one is finances. Lately, for the last couple of years, not lately, for the last couple of years, I've been getting into crypto and other investing. And investing is so important because if you don't do it, like for many years of my life, I didn't invest anything. And then you don't get anything back. And so investing somehow is really important, right, Steve?
Yeah, investing for people is a scary subject until they start to understand what it really is. People think it's people betting on the market, buying stocks and hoping that it goes up in value. It's more than that. Of course, there's a component of something similar to that, but it's not that 60s movie-ish. It's not,
Right.
It's not that stereotypical. There's a lot more to it. and people are scared of it, so they don't do anything. And you've learned, I mean, you're getting into cryptocurrency. You've been getting into cryptocurrency. I learned about cryptocurrency probably back 7 years ago. I haven't got into it yet, but I feel like I have a general enough understanding that I wouldn't hesitate to get into it if I think I was ready.
Right. So I guess that's the takeaway here is look into investing and also not only look into investing and obviously only invest in what you're comfortable with, but also the other part of finances is savings and all that. So I think, for instance, for myself, getting my finances together just makes me feel so much better and it just removes a lot of doubts and everything. Right, Steve?
Right. And if I could go a little bit more into that topic real quick, because a lot of people who are listening may not be in the investing phase of their life. They might be thinking, we lost our jobs last year, 2020. We took a big dip in income. We're not ready to invest right now. We've got all this debt, whatever. We've got to focus on that area. To be blunt, we need to get an emergency fund together. And I think people more than ever now have realized the importance of having an emergency fund. And if you're past that need of having that safety net, or you've used it, you saw how important it was, and you've been able to build it back up again, well, now we need to get into the getting out of debt phase. And that's, consumer debt, the credit cards, the car loans, depending on how much student loans you have. There's all kinds of great information out there that you can consume and learn about it. But you've got to set up some kind of a basic plan. A simple budget will help you focus on the spending part. And then the rest is investing, saving, getting ready for those times when you don't know that a pandemic's going to break out next week after you're at PodFest March 6th,
Yeah.
And that really happened.
Totally. Yeah, it really, just focusing on your finances really helps your future so much. It's hard. You can't even explain how much it helps, but it's so vital and just for your own mindset as well, just so you're on top of things. It's like your house. If your house is all dirty and you haven't cleaned your house in 2.5 years, it's horrible. It just affects your psychology. But when you clean everything up and put everything in its place, you just feel better, and then you're much stronger, and then you do better work, and it just cascades into everything else.
Yep, absolutely.
So the second thing is skills and career, and that's one that look, if you're listening to this and you're a podcast editor or a podcast producer, that's this area. Like your career in podcast production or your career as a podcaster and your skills, that's another area that you could focus on, right, Steve?
Yeah, in a couple of those places, obviously, if you're looking at getting some information because your budget doesn't allow you to take big budget courses, start with some of these great Facebook groups. I'm going to brag about the Podcast Editors Club on Facebook because a lot of people tell me it's great. If you're a female, you have to be a member of the Justbusters community. I'm not in it because I'm not a girl, but everything I know about the people who run it, they're all superstars, and I can just imagine what goes on in that group. So Justbusters, Podcast Editors Club, and then the Podcasters Lounge. That's a fun place to hang out, right, Chris?
Yeah, the lounge. And of course, then you got the Podcast Editor Academy, which you're running. Mm-hmm. That's a great place. And it's not, honestly, for what you get, it's not expensive at all. It's crazy, actually. So
then we could talk about paying for some education, taking some organized classes, courses, things like that. The Podcast Editor Academy is $49 a month, or you can prepay for a full year for $500. And that gives you 12 months, and we're, of course, building onto that. There's also things like there's a great course from Carrie, Caulfield, Arick on how to use RX. There's a Hindenburg course, if you're into Hindenburg, by Bryan, Entzminger. There's all kinds of great courses like that. There are 50, 60, 80, 100. Well, actually, Carrie's is a couple $100. But I'll give you all a tip. If you're a member of the Podcast Editor Academy, then we have discounts for a lot of those classes inside of the Academy. It's a benefit of the membership. And we also have a huge discount, which more than pays for an annual membership, to if you're really looking to take your education on the post-production side of podcasting, or even just the understanding of all aspects of sound, which then makes it to that final episode that you upload to your media host. That's a podcast engineering school, which your next class starts January 12th?
12th, yes.
Yes, I got it right. January 12th, Chris Curran's Podcast Engineering School. I am a graduate. I have to say, I didn't ace it like I thought I would. I learned a lot, and I think a lot of people can too.
Sweet. Yeah, and I also have the course called Getting New Clients at Higher Rates. That's a newer course I made a few months ago, which is really about if you're a podcast producer or editor who really wants to get new clients and earn a lot more, that course is just like, it's basically me pummeling you in the face for about 4 hours until to get you to do the right thing. Anyway, but no, it's very focused. And anyway, that's why I made it. And it takes into consideration all my experience in the podcast industry with all the big clients I've had and all that stuff. So,
right. Because being a good editor or engineer doesn't make you a great salesperson and be able to communicate with clients and be able to get them to sign on with you. So that's a great course that you put together.
Right.
And if it's somebody that it's listening and is not into building a career as a podcast engineer, there's all kinds of great ways to educate yourself about things that you are using in your day job, maybe the hobby that you are looking to take into a full-time job someday. I will recommend courses on Udemy, but then there's also these great summits to attend. Those are quick, easy. I would just pay attention to those things that are going on. Don't discount them like I used to. I used to discount summits as just another way people, right. No, some of them are really fantastic, especially nowadays. There's a lot of people paying attention to how they're doing summits, and it's turning out to be there's a lot of good content out there.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of good content. All right, let's move on to the third one, family and relationships. Well, I mean, come on. All right.
Are you tired of it yet?
No, Dr. Steve, what do you, what can you tell? Now, look, this one's kind of self-explanatory, but the reason we're giving you all these things that you've heard 77 million times in your life is because it really is important. Taking stock of your family, your relationships. Again, it's like having a dirty house. If your family isn't quite where it should be, it just feels weird. It takes away from everything. So
I can say that the biggest problem with the relationship I have with my wife is the communication piece. That's what we still, after 20 years, need to work on. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we'll ever be great at it. I think it's just going to be an ongoing process. But the worst thing we could do is stop communicating. Now, a lot of us have been stuck in the house with our family a lot more than we expected. And that's been great for some people. In fact, I know that's been great for us. My daughter has grown more closer to us, even though, okay, she's 19. She's been living with us the whole time. And she had just started going to college. She had finished her first year, and then, COVID hit. So then all of her classes are home. She's home all the time unless she's going to her part-time job. But it's the time spent. And I'll tell you something that a pastor of mine said one time, which I thought was a brilliant idea. Everybody talks about quality time, quality time, quality time. They're trying to spoil their kids with events and things like that. And I'll tell you what, the phrase he said was just eye-opening to me, because he said, quality time is the dividend payoff from quantity of time. Somehow the quality comes after the quantity. And even if you're not great at it, if you're not a great dad, spending the time with the kids or with your spouse, it helps you improve relationships just by reminding them that you want to be there with them.
Right. So basically what that quote is saying is the more quantity of time you spend with your kids, more quality arises within that time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. How many times have you attended a session, whether it was in person at a conference or something, and there's one little thing that they presented, or you took a course, or somebody said something, and you may have been there for an hour, but that one thing they said changed your life. And that's what I'm talking about with this quality time coming out of quantity time. Sometimes all it takes is one little thing, but you won't get that one little thing unless you spent the other time there as well.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting too, because the more time, even with just in my world of producing audio, the more time you produce audio and the more you try different plugins and try different things and experiment a little, that's when these gems come out, these secrets, these supposed secrets or whatever that you never knew existed. They're there. That's how you find them. So, all right, well, that's family and relationship. And then one thing too is patience and tolerance is big within families. Like, and every problem, this is something I've had to learn. Every problem and issue doesn't have to be solved in this moment. Like, you can talk about things. You can make it. You can, if it's a big decision, you can take a week to decide, discuss it, and decide. Like a lot of times, I think we get anxious and we just want to make a decision and do something. And that's not always the right way to do it. So a lot of times slowing down can work well too sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Especially if you're in the heat of the moment.
Oh, man. So the next one is health. And within this past year, I got a rowing machine. I got those rubber band thingies that you can do exercises with. My wife and I are walking a lot. And so we've been pretty focused on at least staying active. I'm not a bodybuilder, but if you stay active and you stretch a little, just a little, it helps so much. Do you do stuff like that, Steve?
I need to do more. And this year it's just shown a light on the need for that so much more. My wife and I, we have been doing a few things more than we used to, but it's still not consistent enough. We've got a school right next door to us almost. We go play tennis there once in a while when the weather's good. We have kayaks in the garage, so we take those out when we can. When we do those, we feel fantastic afterwards, and we don't do enough of that. And it's probably because now we are stuck in our homes more than we had been. And boy, I'll tell you, sitting on the couch at 7 o'clock at night, I'm already tired if I haven't done anything active. And that's not healthy at all. That's just the health side of health, like the physical side. There's also the mental health. The past 7-8 months have been just draining on people, and I get it. Sometimes the best medicine for mental health is getting out of your comfort zone and trying something new. And it could also be generosity. I'll tell you, generosity has been very helpful for me and my mental health. We just gave a really cool gift to somebody who we really believe needs it. She's a 19-year-old teenager. She's a friend of my daughter's who lost both of her parents in the past couple of years. Now, helping her out with stuff feels really cool. It just uplifts your spirit. So that's a mental health type of thing. There's all kinds of things you can do to improve your mental health as well as your physical.
Yeah, and actually my wife and I, we've had this organization called Pause Your Life, as in pause, press the pause button. And we've been meditating for years and years. And we just started in 2020, we started streaming all of our 2 meditation sessions per week. And so if you're listening to this, go to pauseyourlife.org. That's the website, or we're on Facebook, Twitch, and everything. It's just a couple times a week we meditate. And meditation it's like a doorway to a whole nother world where there is so much power you can gain from that. And it's hard to explain. And we don't have time to go into all that, but just wanted to mention Pause Your Life. So if you can join us and meditate with us, that's great for your health, not only your physical health, but also your mental health and everything else as well.
Yeah. More important to people this last year. I'll tell you, there have been a lot more people got into meditation, and for me, it was prayer. So similar results between those two things.
And by the way, if you're listening to me now and you're thinking, "Oh, I can't meditate," you're wrong, and I'll explain why. Like, contact me, and I'll explain why. And if you also think that if you also believe that you have to be thoughtless when you meditate, you're also wrong. And if you want to know the answer why, contact me. Okay,
That's pretty blunt.
Yeah. I've been teaching meditation for 13 years. Yeah. And I've been practicing for almost 20, and I've been to India 10 times to study meditation and live in ashrams and study with the master. Like, it has been a huge part of my life, and I don't talk about it very much because most people don't care.
Well, most of your shows aren't called your blunt pep talk like this one. That's why you got to be blunt like that.
Thank you.
This short episode's gotten really long. Let's go to number 5. You ready?
Hit it.
Number 5. Your blunt pep talk for 2021 is upscale your podcast.
That's right. Come on.
Content, whether that's audio production, whether that's format change, whether that's cover art. Get better at writing titles for your episodes, whatever it takes I know people have already been working on improving their podcasts, but there's a lot more podcasts out there now. 2021 is not going to be any different. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. I wanted to grunt every time you said something, like write better titles. Come up with better format. I mean, look, again, blunt. Look, there's a lot of opportunity for growth in podcasting, whether it's your podcast or production of other podcasts. And just little things here and there can make a big difference, but it just takes a little bit of focus. So up your game. Really, in 2021. Let's up your game. Let's take it, not only double it, but like multiply it times 10. Like just at least start with that attitude. Like that, let's bring this to a whole nother level. I often think about that with my school and my businesses. Like, how can I literally take my income and multiply it by 10? Like, forget about times 2. Think about times 10. And if you're into tech or building apps and stuff, you could think times 100, stuff like that. But
right.
There's a lot of upside in this world, and a lot of times we get caught thinking that, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not good enough to do that, or well, the way I do my show, that's how I do it. There's so much opportunity, and it just requires a little focus. So maybe even sometime soon we should do a stream in the Podcasters Lounge where we can brainstorm on all these, on upping your game in every different area of your podcast.
I can give a couple of practical tips on that as well. And it just has to be with this, because everybody's on social media so much now. I would challenge anyone in this that's listening to this right now to go to Facebook. If you're using Facebook, go to Facebook and unfollow or unjoin the groups that you're just not getting any value out of. Even if you don't see them anymore, just get out of them and focus on 1 or 2 that you are getting value from. I have unfollowed a bunch of groups because it's just the same. And I've progressed past the need to be active in some of these really big Facebook groups that are about podcasting, because everybody's, hey, I'm about to launch my podcast. How do I grow an audience? Me personally, I'm way past that. I don't need that. And that's why some of these niche groups are much better, because they're focused on the same thing I want to focus on. There's plenty of space out there for these smaller groups. Just focus on those, and that'll afford you more time than trying to be in all these other groups and scrolling down the line looking for something to comment on, because we all have our own opinions in podcasting, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, and your goals as well. I mean, obviously we're entering a new year. You might want to take some time to set your goals for your podcast. Like, what do you want to do this year? Do you want to do an episode every week? Do you want to grow your audience times 2 or times 10? Or do you want to have partnerships with some other key people where you can cross promote? I mean, there's a million things. Like, anyway, brainstorming goals is, that's one of my favorite things to do. In fact, last year, or was it 2 years ago? It was 2 years ago. I literally rented a cabin for 5 days, and I literally just went there and wrote out goals and plans for the future. And I read parts of these books, some of the classic books that I love. Like, I literally spent 5 days just planning out my life and, well, more my business. And let me tell you something. That was an invaluable experience. So my thing is, I would suggest give yourself the chance. Open up your mind and your heart and dump it onto the page, or dump it into a Word document, and just see what's in your heart and take it. Don't just poo-poo it and say, oh, I could never grow my show times 10. Don't say that. Like, figure out how you can do it. Think of the how. Focus on the how, not I can't. All right. Any more blunt messages, Steve?
I would say I want anybody who's listening to this right now to go to your app or whatever calendar you use. I just use Google Calendar on my phone, on my computer. It's easy to access everywhere. Put a reminder on there for March 15th to revisit your goals. You don't have to put anything more specific on that. That is your reminder. Because what's going to happen, just like everybody else when they're doing New Year's resolutions, those wishes that people make, they never act on them. And March 15 will be the wake-up call to say, oh, that's right. Chris Curran said I should do this. He was being blunt about it.
Right. I love that. Also, I think I would love to start a hashtag. By the way, I always have a lot of ideas about cool hashtags, but of course, even if I tweet it, it never catches on. But as far as the physical health goes, we should start a hashtag podcaster push-ups, and people should make videos of themselves just cranking out push-ups, baby. Come on, show me 20.
Push-ups.
Tweet at me 20. All right, anyway, do some push-ups.
I made note of it.
So those are the 5 things. This is the Blunt Pep Talk. Steve Stewart, thank you so much. I mean, you are someone, I've known you for years now, and you're always someone who is you're not only in the moment focusing on things, but you also are very good at zooming out a little and looking at the broader picture. And, you know, I always think of the quote, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something like this. Poor people plan for like a week when they get their paycheck on Friday. Middle class people, maybe they'll plan for a few months or a year, but wealthy people plan for 3 generations. I've heard something like that. And I know I butchered it, but that's the point, is zoom out. Zoom out, and then, first of all, when you zoom out, you don't get caught up in all the little garbage that's happening, all the little nitpicky that just distracts you and all that. Forget that. Just zoom out from that. And plus, it lets you see the arc of your life. Because here's the thing, you're not going to live forever. And for a lot of us, it's more than half. It's almost over. Actually, it's almost over. And I'm not trying to be dramatic or nothing, but that's just the truth. So we got some time left here. Let's think about that time and make some plans. Right, Steve?
2021, make it even better than 2019 was supposed to be. We're not going to talk about last year. Nobody expected 2020.
Right. All right. Well, this has been great. Steve Stewart, everyone, again, go to Podcast Editors Club on Facebook. It's a great Facebook group. And, of course, the Podcast Editor Academy.com. All the links will be in the description. What else can we say, Steve?
More importantly, go to podcastengineeringschool.com, and Chris's new class, Chris's next class is going to be January 12th, 2021. It's 7 weeks still, or did you add another one on there?
No, it's still 7 weeks of live classes.
Or you've got your I didn't get the right title.
Getting new clients at higher rates.
Yes, getting new clients at higher rates course. That's a learn at your own pace course. And then you've got some kind of communication device in between all the members of that, right?
Yeah, we have a Slack group and everything too. Oh, and that brings us up to the surprise news, which we didn't cover yet. If you want to cover it, Steve Stewart.
Well, I was talking about your stuff first, but okay.
Well, no, we talked about my stuff. Everyone knows about my stuff anyway. But let's drop the news. This is an exclusive right here, okay? Steve, before we press the record button here, Steve would literally had stopped for about 20 seconds to think, should I announce this or not? I don't think so. Maybe I can. I don't know. All right, let's announce it. So here is Steve's big announcement.
Wow, Chris, you really built that up to be a lot bigger than most people. What they don't understand is the reason why I was debating with myself is my partner, Mark Deal. He and I are partners in the Podcast Editor Academy, and we haven't launched this thing yet. It's coming very soon, he promises, and I shouldn't talk about it until it's out, but we are going to be opening up forums inside of the Academy, meaning people inside the Academy will be able to have communications with each other, and we're also going to have a way for them to kind of filter through the people in the Academy to find other like-minded people who have the same kind of skill set, mindset, things like that. I can't go too much into it because I haven't actually seen it work yet, but it sounds very cool the way that Mark's describing it.
Yeah, what you're describing is like a whole area, a forum area inside the Podcast Editor Academy where members of the Academy can talk to each other. It's a private group, but it's going to be, like you said, divided up into topics and things so you can connect with, for instance, people who are using the same DAW as you, maybe. And again, I'm just thinking out loud here, but that's pretty big news, actually. That's awesome.
People have been asking for a while, and Mark wants to do it right. That's why we haven't announced it yet. We haven't launched it yet, but it's coming very soon. There
you go, the Podcast Editor Academy. I think if you're a podcast editor and you want to grow your business, one of my suggestions would be to join the Podcast Editor Academy for a year, at least 1 year, but at least for 1 year, give it everything you got. Pay the money, make the investment, and just bring it, man. In 1 year, trust me, in 1 year, you can literally change your entire life. I promise you. And maybe it's a good tag team with my maybe the Podcast Editor Academy goes well with getting new clients at higher rates, because that's one way. I mean, think about if you doubled your rate. You can make twice as much money doing the same work. Yep. Anyway.
And by the way, we have a discount for that course inside the Podcast Editor Academy. So if we're not getting it done, we have partnered with a lot of these people who have the curriculum, the courses, the education that can get you there. Beginner's Guide to EQ with Tom Kelly. There's just all kinds of good stuff in the Academy we have discounts for.
There's a ton of stuff in there. There's like at least 20 or 30, probably more than 20 or 30 courses, I think.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, if you just talk about the live streams that we've got in there, that's, we've got more than 60 videos just in those alone.
Oh my God. And the live stream, those are people who are like demonstrating different DAWs and different software. And
yeah, because I'm not great at Hindenburg, but Bryan Entzminger is, and Jenny Wren was. And so they've got their demonstrations in our course, in our academy.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Steve Stewart. This was awesome. I'm happy to do this little mini episode. We talked about it being about 10 to 12 minutes, and now it's 32 minutes. So,
well, hey, you weren't blunt enough. That was the problem. We need to get to the point and be blunt about it.
All right.
And you're in Colorado, so the word blunt can be used two different ways. We're talking about it as in like being forceful, being direct.
Oh, as opposed to 420, baby. Oh, I forgot about that.
I was wondering when you would get that joke.
No, I'm not a 420 guy. I'm not against it either.
I'm not either. It's just I know the joke.
Yeah, and I mean maybe in the future I will be. I'm not counting it out. I'm just saying. But anyway, okay, so thanks for listening to this episode. And just a reminder, this was not a normal episode of this show. Normally we talk about podcast production in depth. But after listening to this, you might want to literally just sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and just basically dump your thoughts onto a piece of paper or dump them into a Word document and just start brainstorming and let your own brain tell you where to go. Like maybe out of these 5 things we talked about, maybe there's one that you really need to focus on for an entire year. So figure it out and do it. So thanks everybody for listening. Check out all the links in the show notes, and we will see you next week with an awesome interview episode. This is a really good one. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm not going to reveal the guest and the topic. But it's a podcast.
Better than the one with the guy from RX?
Oh, the one that was great. This one's different. This one is different. Anyway, I'm so psyched about next week's episode. So thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.